Hey guys, it's Joe East here. Beautiful Saturday morning after Christmas, right before New Year's Day. Over here in South Texas. Scholars and gentlemen, good morning. We're gonna have a coffee shop chat here with Joe East. Your coffee should be ground, and it should have pure cream in it, if at all possible. No half and half, no sugar, and no creamer. Make sure it's pure cream. It's a custom where I grew up with, where you invite friends, family over for a chat over coffee. Cheers. Scholars and gentlemen. So, as we continue to go into this new millennium, we're still about, 18, 19 years in of the new millennium, but it seems like we haven't quite shifted completely in the new consciousness that we all know is headed in a certain direction. You can kind of feel the direction, but you can't predict where things are going. This little chat here is to give some hope to this transition, in that, yes, everything you were taught is a lie from your schools, your churches, the government, everybody, perhaps even your parents. They didn't even know, right? Everybody was taught a lie. It's all BS. Bullshit, for the technical term. So I'm going to go through how we're going to go through this transition as a society and how we can think through it and keep a little bit of hope here. There's a couple of little landmines we got to watch for as we transition completely into this new millennium, as we understand the lie and how do we deal with it, right? Okay? So I wrote on my whiteboard up here so you guys can see it. There's a scripture, is that John 8:32. Let's see. Yeah, John 8:32. This is not a religious. Chat. This is a practical chat. But anyway, I just want to use a little bit of scripture here to enlighten what's going on. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's the authorized version, authorized translation of the Bible. In the U.S., we call it the King James Version. It's kind of this elevated talk. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That elevated, magical English of Shakespeare. So, this, I think, in my mind, is one of the most profound things written in the scripture. But implicit in the story, if you read it correctly and you understand the context of what Jesus was saying, the implication is my second point here in green, if you can see it there. First, the truth is going to piss you off. All right? Now think about that. If you're a Christian and you're like, wait, where are you going there? All right, Jesus said the truth will make you free, or set you free in some translations, right? But first, that will piss you off. Oh my God, no, it can't be. The truth is so beautiful. The truth is awesome. Not really. Not really. First, the truth will piss you off. Now think about what they did to that guy who said this. What did they do to him, right? Think about that. What did they do to him when he told them the truth? Do I have to explain it in detail? They killed him. They killed that dude that said this, right? So implicit in this story is that there is a big, big danger to the truth that we must always be cognizant of. Many stories through the ages hint at this, but because the truth is so shocking and dangerous, the stories themselves have to be a bit veiled in the way they say it because it is dangerous in a certain way. So let's go through this. A couple of ideas here. So what is the danger of the truth? Oh my God, what is truth? If you remember the other story in Scripture, Pilate asked Jesus, quid est veritas? He was a Roman. They spoke Latin in Rome as Romans. Quid est veritas? What is truth? Right? And of course, that story is a dramatic, Jesus said he was the truth. But they killed him. So there's an implicit danger to, even if you're a Christian, the Son of God can't even say the truth without getting himself killed. If you're a Jew or a Muslim, the Son of Mary couldn't even say the truth without getting killed, right? Whatever your tradition is, whatever your family tradition is. So if the Son of God or the Son of Mary can't speak the truth without getting killed, what do you think of the rest of us, right? So even though you may know the truth or know a piece of the truth, you can't just shout it from the rooftops. It's an implicit thing about truth, veritas, that you can't shout it from the rooftops because you will risk getting killed. And that is very literal. That is not a joke. So if you look in The Matrix, the movie, you guys remember the movie The Matrix, where people would plug electrodes in the back of guys' heads and download software. Well, beyond a certain point, the storyline goes, you can't get someone out of the Matrix without them either die or extreme consequences. So even in one of our greatest movies ever, concerning giving people the red pill of truth, you still can't do it to just anybody. It's not, you can't broadcast this stuff. It's a bit much for people to take. It'll freak them out. It'll drive them mad. It'll drive them insane. Because when you live in a lie, and suddenly the bright light of truth shines down all at once, it will rattle your cage. It will screw you up. It will drive you insane. However, some of us are called to this earth to shine the light to those who may be able to handle it, maybe. And we have to figure out who's able to handle this before we tell them the truth. Veritas, quid est veritas, as Pilate said. So, and you have to make sure the character of the person is ready for the truth. So one of my other sayings is, the secret shall be revealed to thee only when thou art ready. So, and that's kind of one of the laws of the universe. You can't really know the truth until you're ready. How do you know you're ready? Well, you only know when you get ready. That's the secret. That's one of the secrets. So, I want to just stimulate thoughts for you scholars and gentlemen on some of the ideas of if you are ready, if you know you're ready, or if you're finally stumbled upon the truth, veritas, and you have this error in yourself to actually broadcast it and say it to the world. You can't do that. You just can't. At least not all of it. I mean, you could suggest, but you can't say the truth. It's hidden to those who are lost, is another way to say it, right? So how can we encourage people down a path where eventually they will know the truth, the veritas, quid est veritas? There are a few aids to help in learning, but the core issue is you have to learn by doing. You can't just have a lecture with no kinesthetic follow-ups or no real-life travel through the gates of truth, walking through the gates of truth. You can't just sit down and get lectured on truth. It doesn't work that way. Those of you who have a good life experience know what that is. So what's some ways where we can prepare ourselves for the truth when we are ready to receive it, right? Like I said, learning by doing. A lecture will not work without some sort of kinesthetic follow-up. A lecture can help as a preparation, but just lecturing doesn't. In fact, for some people, lectures don't work at all. Depending on the type of psychology, the type of person you are, a lecture might not be your path. It is some people's path, the lecture as a precursor to your Oddessey. So foreign travel is a big deal for walking a path to where you can be ready to receive the truth, because foreign travel will throw you into a completely alien environment where you have to use your native skills to navigate. Even better if they don't speak your native language. They speak not English. If you can't do the foreign travel, do some domestic travel to strange places. One thing you must do is leave your hometown and your home culture. So if you grew up in the Midwest, you have to leave the Midwest and go somewhere else like California. If you grew up in California, you have to leave the West Coast and go to, say, the Midwest, New England, the South, or whatever. If you grew up in the South, you have to leave the South and go to New England, the big cities on the coast, California, maybe the western mountain states. Like I said, if you can, go to a foreign country that does not speak English. So throughout history, there's a very big importance placed on the Odyssey, the concept of the Odyssey, where you leave home, you go on an adventure, and then you return to your home to rediscover your home anew in a new way, right? And that's kind of how this quid est veritas, what is truth? The answer is kind of sort of an Odyssey. You must go through your Odyssey. You have to walk the path. You can't just learn stuff. And that was one of the things in the scripture. Jesus mainly spoke with a bunch of lawyerly types where they memorized the law of Moses or some of the commentary on the law of Moses and thought they knew the truth. It doesn't work like that. You don't memorize it. You don't sit in a classroom lecture. You must walk a path. You must go on an Odyssey. Our Muslim brothers must do a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in their lifetimes. That's another way of doing this path of discovering truth, going on a large Odyssey. Take you completely away from your native bearings and throw you into a foreign sort of situation where you must use your native capabilities to navigate. Caution in reading the Bible. So a lot of us who are Westerners, we Western guys, grew up in the West. There's this weird thing that the Protestant Revolution gave us about Scripture, where it's some sort of, it's very close to the ancient concept of idolatry, and that's exactly what we run into a lot, we Westerners, with regard to the Bible. So the caution is you can't just read the Bible and memorize all this stuff and know the truth. It doesn't happen here in the head. Truth has to drop down below the neck into the kinesthetics. Absolutely necessary. So if you just have it here in your learning, your lectures, your memorization, that's not the truth. That's actually a part of the lie. So anyway, it's not saying that Scripture is irrelevant. It's just saying that learning it will get you nowhere. You must walk a path. Then learning can inform your path as you walking it. But just learning the Scripture is probably worse than useless. It's probably harmful because you think you have a truth, and if it hasn't dropped down below the neck, you don't have it. So basically, you're living a lie if you memorize Scripture without walking the Odyssey, doing the path. So that's one danger of caution in reading the Bible and showing young people how to memorize Scripture and preach and stuff like that. That's not going to work. Preaching doesn't work as we think of it. It only works one-on-one. from heart to heart, one-on-one, and it has to be below the neck. That's a little kernel of knowledge you need to know. All religions have been hijacked in the West and to some extent in the East. So we've been living in a weird system in the past, 150 or so years of industrialized propaganda, industrialized lies, so that the working class and the middle class is focused on a particular path to maximize revenue for the military-industrial complex and in the industry and the financial complex. So that's kind of what we've been under for about 150 years. Before that, it was maybe some other form of lies, but it seems like our lies nowadays is just comprehensive for the military-industrial complex, and now with the banking complex. So we're slowly seeing cracks in the system with the internet as it's distributed, and people, from all walks of life start to connect, and, hey, this is a bunch of BS I was taught. Why was I taught that, right? And you're going to learn that. So as you walk your Oddessey and you meet people who are different from you, you travel to foreign countries, or you go in the U.S. to a foreign place that's very different from where you grew up, you're going to find out a lot of things you learned were lies. And that's part of the process, part of the Oddessey, part of quid est veritas, what is truth. That's part of the answer. Again, the answer is below the neck. It's not here, right? Okay, I'm going to say that a lot, but that's absolutely true. The Bible itself does not say what people say it means. Remember that, okay? So that's just a little kernel of truth you need to know if you grew up in some sort of religious background of, mainstream Christianity or some of the more weird forms, right? It doesn't say what people say it means. A little kernel here is it's an instrument of learning as a piece of the Oddessey. That's a way to think about it. Only those who have been through the process can possibly know what Scripture means. Now, this is probably true for all religions, whether you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, or other religions, traditions. Your Scripture, your catechisms is not the truth. You must walk a path. You have to. Only those who've been through the process can possibly know what it means. One thing you might want to look through is alchemy. Going through the several stages of alchemy and walking through that process. Alchemy wasn't literally turning lead into gold. Alchemy was an odyssey, another form of an odyssey, going through a travel. In this case, building things and figuring out how things go together and come apart, and how you walk through all these gates of knowledge, which can't be learned here. You must drop down below the neck. Must. So what's one way, if you're a gentleman and a scholar, like I hope perhaps most of you guys are, to facilitate this process if you're not actually traveling or actually have a way to travel at this point? Well, you can study a few things, but what you need to study are things that are very different from what your schooling was, whether that's government, schools, religion, whatever. So you want to look to history, but you want to read stuff that's over 150 years old. That way it's so far away from our experience now that it's almost like foreign travel, but not quite. I mean, it's still reading a book, which is not exactly walking the path, but it'll inform you when you do your foreign travels. So who's changed the world, and what have they written down? So if you can get a copy of some of the writings of Napoleon changed the world. Louis XIV of France changed the world. Isaac Newton, the greatest scientist of all time, changed the world. He actually studied alchemy, and science was a piece of his alchemy study. So that's interesting how he walked the path of truth using alchemy. And people think of him as a great scientist, but those who know this path know that he was actually the greatest alchemist, one of the greatest alchemists. Erasmus. Look up Erasmus, some of his writings, figure out his story. The leader of the Protestant Revolution, Martin Luther. Read him. That guy will give you a lot of different ways of looking at the world. Martin Luther. In England, Henry VIII. Try to see how England was structured before Henry VIII, with the monasteries ruling several sectors of the land out there, and what happened when Henry VIII came and abolished all the monasteries. Interesting story of how things develop. Constantine, what did he do? What did he do whenever he transformed the Roman Empire from paganism to Christianity? And then what happened at the Council of Nicaea, several of the church councils that Constantine actually called, so all the church fathers at the time could agree upon stuff, right? The great Jewish scholar Maimonides, look him up. That guy's going to give you a different view of looking at the world. I think one of his most famous books was Guide to the Perplexed. I think is the title of one of his books. The Zohar, a mystical reading of the Torah, or a mystical reading of the Law of Moses. The Zohar. Machiavelli, The Whisperer to Kings. By the way, Louis XIV of France was very, very well educated in Machiavelli. Charlemagne, or Charlemagne, Charles the Great. Charlemagne was basically the father of Western Europe. And look at how he ruled that part of the world, and how he had 3 sons who developed into 3 different nations. And that kind of sort of is the seed of the West, more or less. Charles Martel, I think he was either the son or the grandson of Charlemagne. He was actually quite an important historical figure. Charles Martel, Charles the Hammer. Look at his great battle and figure out what did he do in history to change history. Charles Martel. Muhammad, a great story of a great prophet of Islam, the great prophet of Islam, Muhammad, right? So what's his story? How did he get power, and how did he receive his revelation, and how did he put that revelation into the world, right? The Arian heresy. So in the original, as the churches were forming in the early part of the church history, look up the Arian heresy and how the sector of the world where the Arian churches were more likely to come under the influence of Islam and Muhammad. Look up the Essenes. A lot of traditions think that Jesus was originally an Essene. Very good subject to study. Eastern Orthodoxy. So if you grew up in the West and you know a lot about Protestant doctrines or Catholic doctrines, study the Eastern Orthodox guys. Those dudes are so different from the way we think. It'll show you truth upon your path or on your Odyssey. It'll help you out on your Odyssey. The Maronite Christians from the Middle East. Study those guys. Very powerful, or should I say, a very strong people, the Maronites. Closer to North America, look up the history of Canada and the St. Lawrence River in Canada. So look at a picture, a geography of North America, and look at the St. Lawrence River. And if you look at it in a certain way, it's like a gate to North America. How do you enter North America? Well, if you look at the geography of the map, you enter it through the St. Lawrence River or the Mississippi River, right? Two great gates of North America. At least that's what the French were thinking whenever they colonized North America. So look that up in the French colonization of North America and how they were thinking about the St. Lawrence River, which is completely, I think most of it's in Canada, and the Mississippi River, and how they were thinking of colonizing North America before the English became dominant with the founding of the United States. The Reconquista in Spain. So Spain was under Islamic rule for several centuries. Then suddenly the native people revolted and threw them out and actually killed all the Moors. The Moors were the rulers of Spain. Study the Cathars. There was this quote-unquote heresy of the Cathars in southern France. They lasted for several hundred years. I was quite inspired by their strength of character as I read what they actually did. Eventually they were exterminated completely, like wiped off the face of the earth by the powers that be at the time. But their story, I think, should be told more often. Germany, Schopenhauer. If you're going to read anything about Germany, you need to know Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer, some of his intellectual descendants was, for example, Charles Darwin, Friedrich Nietzsche, great thinker, Schopenhauer, if you're interested in Germany. Another thing, as you walk along your path, is what were the British thinking as they slowly and then eventually took over the world? And we, who are inheritors of the British Empire, which is kind of sort of the United States, we inherited their basis of controlling the world. So what did the British Navy and what were they trying to do? They didn't fight that many land battles as much as, say, France and Spain did, but they actually eventually took over the world. And how they did it, what their strategy was, the British Navy. What you need to focus on is the gates of the world. So as you look over the waterways of all the world, there are many gates where there's strategic points in the ocean or seas where if you control that point, you control a lot of the seas around that point. So one of the great gates of the world is Gibraltar on the tip of Spain, which Britain, I think, owns until this day. Then as you come around Africa, South Africa. So why did the British have South Africa? It's another gate of the world. You go around Africa up toward where the Middle East is. There's Egypt. And who controlled Egypt for many years? The British Suez Canal. Why was the Suez Canal so important? All right, the gates of the world. And as you go further along that line towards India, the British controlled India for how long and why? It was a point in the Indian Ocean. It was another gate of the world. India. Hong Kong. Britain just relinquished Hong Kong in 1996, but why was it so important? Again, it's another gate of the world. Like if you control that gate, you control the seas around it. British Navy. Australia. It still is till this day under the control of the Queen of England. Another gate of the world. It's in that sea there. And if you control Australia, you control a lot of around it. New Zealand, another little gate out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Canada, one of the biggest land masses in the world. Why would the British Empire hold so strongly on Canada? Even till today, Queen Elizabeth is the chief executive of Canada, officially. Why does she own Canada? There's a lot of resources in Canada. It's almost as big as Russia, but not quite. Also, remember what I said about the St. Lawrence River being the gate of North America? And the Queen is probably thinking ahead in centuries, right? Okay, so think about Canada and how the British Navy and the British Empire are thinking about their strategy. It's more long-term than probably we're thinking. So anyway, so this was I want to bring this to a close here. This was a kind of a half-hour-ish sort of chat, coffee shop chat here, trying to give you a little bit of oxygen in walking the path of truth. You can't tell people the truth. You have to suggest a path. They must walk the path. And the truth suddenly comes up. It will piss them off. So that's another thing about the truth. When you know you're stumbling upon it, it's going to piss you off. Because again, everything you're taught was a lie, a sweet lie, a little lullaby. Your mother sang to you as she rocked your crib, and those songs were soothing. Yeah, comfortable. Sweet little lies, right? There's no booger man under the bed. There's no big bad wolf out there. Or is there? All right, so the takeaway is these 3 points up here for this little coffee shop chat. Number 1, you shall know the truth, and this truth shall make you free. So the pursuit of truth is quite interesting. It's quite interesting. And that's probably what it is, a pursuit. Quid est veritas? What is truth? You must walk the path. You must pursue it. Nobody can tell you what it is because it can't be spoken. Again, it's not intellect. It's not from the mouth to the brain of the other guy. It's dropped down below the neck. That's what truth is. Or should I say that's how you come to know the truth. Second point, it will piss you off. I think I've said that plenty of times. The third point is your Oddessey. You must walk your path before you are set free. Like I said, you start walking your path, you're going to be pissed off. Then you'll be set free. And once you're set free, you're going to want to tell the world about it, but you can't because they'll kill you. And that's another thing about the truth. So if you're knowing the truth or you're stumbling upon truth, and suddenly you're like, oh crap, people would kill if they knew this. That is a flag that you're stumbling upon truth. As Jesus Christ was killed, as he told the truth, we would be killed too, right? We're not Jesus Christ or Muhammad or one of those other great figures in history who spoke the truth and were killed for it. So that's another sign. You know, you kind of like, oh, you can't say that, right? Not to too many people, right? Because you're going to get killed. So that's whenever you're stumbling upon the real truth, whenever you know that something is so dangerous, so shocking to the world that people must walk their own path to know that truth. That's when you know you're on the path. That's when you know you're on your real Oddessey, and you shall be set free. And as you're set free, you're going to develop some native instincts on who is ready for it, or who is ready for what nuggets of truth, and who's not, right? So some people are ready for certain amounts of nuggets of truth. I think there's one illustration in the scripture where I think it was the Apostle Paul said the sincere milk of the word, and then there's more advanced meat for those who can handle the real stuff. So you're going to kind of see that duality in truth, where there's a kernel of half-truth to protect people from the shocking realization of reality. And then as people are prepared to be shocked, pissed off, you kind of sort of know the signs when they're ready for a little bit more nuggets to help them on their path, on their Oddessey. So that's it, guys. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. First, it will piss you off, but walk your path. Learn the truth below the neck. It has to be right here in the chest. The ancient way of saying it is in the heart, but that's been overused in music. So drop down below the neck, into the chest, into the stomach. That's where truth has to be. Nice coffee shop chat here. Cheers. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks, guys. Till next time. Goodbye.